Getting consistent lighting for volume photography doesn't have to be complicated. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact 3-light setup I use to photograph thousands of athletes every year. Even if you've never used studio lights before, you'll see how to get clean, professional-looking portraits that are easy to repeat all day long. Once you understand a few simple lighting principles, you'll stop guessing, spend less time editing, and start getting consistent results with every subject. And be sure to stick around until the end, because I'm going to show you one simple adjustment that can make a bigger difference to your portraits than buying a more expensive light. Let's jump right in. Before we talk about settings, let me show you the finished lighting setup behind me. This is it. 3 lights. Main light to your left, fill light to your right, and hair light above the background. 1 camera, 1 backdrop. And this exact setup has helped us photograph thousands of youth athletes over the last decade. Now let's build it together one piece at a time so you understand why every light is exactly where it is. If you're new to studio lighting, here's the biggest mindset shift. When you're shooting outdoors, the sun is your light source. Your camera has to work with whatever light is available. But when using studio lights, your lights create the exposure. That means instead of chasing changing light all day, you're creating exactly the same lighting every single time. And that's one of the biggest reasons studio lighting works so well for volume photography. Every athlete walks into the exact same light. Every photo matches. That consistency saves an incredible amount of time later when you're editing. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. Before I even switch a studio light on, I already know 2 of my camera settings. My shutter speed is 1/200th of a second. That's within my camera's flash sync speed. Then I set my aperture to f8. Why f8? Because it gives me plenty of depth of field. Kids move. People lean forward. Some are taller than others. At f8, I know my subjects will stay nice and sharp. So before we've even powered up a single light, 2 of our 3 exposure settings are already locked in. That leaves us with only 1 setting left to worry about. We'll come back to that in just a minute. Now let's take a quick look at the lighting equipment. My setup uses 3 Godox lights, 1 AD600, 2 AD200s. The AD600 serves as my main light, and it is right behind me. The 2 AD200s become my fill light and hair light. I've used this combination for years because it's portable, reliable, and produces excellent results without costing a fortune. Now, if you're using another lighting brand, don't worry. The principles in this video are exactly the same. This lighting diagram will work with virtually any professional studio light system. The next piece is something that confuses almost every beginner. The wireless trigger. This little device mounts in your camera's hot shoe. Every time you press the shutter, it tells all 3 lights to fire at exactly the same moment. No cables, no complicated wiring. Everything happens wirelessly. Once you understand this little device, the whole lighting system suddenly becomes much less intimidating. Channels and groups made simple on the wireless trigger. Now you'll notice a few settings on both the trigger and the flashes. Channels, groups, power. Let's simplify them. Think of the channel like a private radio station. Every flash and the trigger need to be on the same channel so they're all talking to each other. That's it. Now let's look at groups. Groups let you control each light independently. Here's how I set mine up. Main light. Group A. Fill light. Group B. Hair light. Group C. Now here's the really nice part. If I decide my hair light is a little too bright, I don't have to walk over to the light. I simply press the Group C button on the trigger, turn the dial, and the power changes instantly. Once you've done this a couple of times, it becomes second nature. Saving battery power in the lights is why I shoot manual mode. One thing I almost always recommend for volume photography: use manual mode on the flash trigger. A lot of photographers start with TTL because they think it's easier, but in volume photography, consistency is everything. TTL is constantly making exposure decisions. That means one athlete might be slightly brighter than the next. Instead, I set every light to 1/8 power. Why 1/8? Because it's a great balance. The flashes recycle quickly. They generate less heat. The batteries last much longer. And I can photograph hundreds of athletes without waiting on my lights between shots. Once those settings are dialed in, they stay there. That's one less thing to think about during a busy picture day. The final camera setting. Remember earlier when I said we only had one camera setting left? This is where ISO comes in. Since I know my battery-powered studio lights are running at 1/8 power, I simply raise my ISO to 400. Now my camera and flashes are perfectly balanced. From this point forward, I rarely touch my flash power. Instead, if I need a tiny exposure adjustment, I'll simply make a small ISO change. It's faster, it's easier, and it keeps my flash output consistent all day long. But now that everything is configured, let's actually start placing the lights. Because where you put the lights is just as important as the settings themselves. And I'm also going to show you why I intentionally let my white background photograph as gray. There's a very practical reason for it that makes post-production much easier. Now that our camera is configured, let's actually build the lighting setup. This is where everything starts coming together. We'll add one light at a time so you can clearly see what each one contributes. Because one mistake I see beginners make all the time, Thiasti, is turning on every light at once. Then when something doesn't look right, they have no idea which light is causing the problem. Instead, always build your setup one light at a time. Let's start with the most important light in the entire studio, the key or main light. If I could only use one light, this would be it. Everything else simply supports it. I position it about 45 degrees from my subject and slightly above eye level. Then I angle it down toward the face. Why? Because that's where light naturally comes from. Think about the sun. Think about the lights in your house. Most light comes from above, not from underneath. That slight downward angle creates natural-looking shadows under the chin and around the face, giving your portraits depth instead of looking flat. Now, here's something worth remembering. If your portraits ever look harsh, the first thing I check isn't the camera, it's the light position. Sometimes moving the light just a few inches completely changes the portrait. We'll come back to that idea in a minute. Now let's switch on the second light, the fill light. Its job isn't to create new shadows. Its job is to soften the shadows the main light already created. Here's the easiest way to see it. Main light only. Nice lighting, but fairly dramatic. Now, let's turn on the fill light. Immediately the shadows become softer. The portrait feels brighter, friendlier, more balanced. For volume photography, that's exactly what we want. Because every athlete, every student, every employee needs to look good regardless of their face shape. A softer lighting ratio is much more forgiving. One mistake beginners often make is turning the fill light up too high. If the fill becomes as bright as the main light, your portrait loses depth. Everything starts looking flat. So think of the fill light as support, not competition. Now let's add the final light, the hair light. This is the light that many beginners skip, but it's also one of the easiest ways to make a portrait look more professional. Watch what happens. Without it, the subject blends into the background. Turn it on, and suddenly you get a subtle highlight around the hair and shoulders. That tiny rim of light creates separation. Instead of looking stuck to the background, the subject now stands out. It's a small difference. But once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Again, keep it subtle. If people immediately notice your hair light, it's probably too bright. The best lighting usually isn't the lighting people notice. It's the lighting they don't notice. Let's talk about light distance. Now remember earlier when I said moving a light just a few inches can completely change your portrait? This is why. Most photographers think brightness comes from flash power, and that's true. But distance often has an even bigger impact. Move a light closer and look at how much brighter and softer the light becomes. Let's move it farther away. The light becomes dimmer. The shadows become harder. Everything changes. And I haven't touched the flash power once. So here's the takeaway. Before you start adjusting camera settings, before you start changing flash power, try moving the light first. It's often the quickest solution. You don't need to memorize the physics behind it. Just remember this. The closer your light is, the softer and brighter it becomes. The farther away it is, the harder and less powerful it becomes. That one principle will solve a surprising number of lighting problems. Why my white background isn't actually white. Now here's something that surprises a lot of people. See this white backdrop? When I take a picture, it actually photographs as gray. And yes, that's intentional. Most beginners immediately try to blast the background with light until it's perfectly white. But here's the problem. Once the background becomes brighter than your subject, light starts bouncing back into the portrait. You lose contrast. Edges become softer. Sometimes you'll even see light wrapping around the sides of the subject. Instead, I prefer starting with a slightly darker background. Think of it like this. I'm lighting the person. The background is secondary. Small adjustments make big differences. Here's probably the biggest lesson I've learned after years of volume photography. You almost never need huge adjustments. Move a light 6 inches, take another picture, lower one flash by 1/3 of a stop. Take another picture, raise the hair light slightly, take another picture. Professional lighting isn't about constantly rebuilding the entire studio. It's about making tiny adjustments, then letting the camera show you what changed. Those little refinements are what separate a setup that works from one that looks polished. At this point, our lighting setup is complete. The camera is dialed in. The flashes are balanced. The portraits already look great. But before picture day begins, there are a few final checks I always make. These last tips help me keep exposure consistent, avoid common mistakes, and make sure the setup keeps working from the first athlete of the day to the very last one. Let's go over those next. Take a test portrait. The first thing I do is photograph someone, not the backdrop, not a light stand, a real person. Why? Because people reflect light differently than empty backgrounds. Skin tones, hair color, clothing, all of those things affect how the final portrait looks. So before picture day officially starts, I'll have someone stand where the athletes will be standing. Take a few test shots. Then zoom in and really look at the image. I'm checking a few simple things. Is the face evenly lit? Are the eyes sharp? Is the hair light too bright? Is there enough separation from the background? Small corrections now. Save hundreds of corrections later. Don't chase perfection. Here's something I wish someone had told me years ago. Don't spend 30 minutes trying to make one portrait absolutely perfect. Because the moment the first student walks in, everything changes. Someone is taller, someone is shorter, someone leans forward, someone has curly hair, someone wears glasses. Your lighting setup needs to be consistent, not perfect. That's the goal in volume photography. Consistency beats perfection every single time. Working with different subjects. One question I get all the time is, do I have to change my lighting for every person? Usually, no. That's actually one of the biggest advantages of this setup. Once everything is dialed in, the lights stay exactly where they are. The camera settings stay exactly the same. The flash power stays exactly the same. The only thing that changes is your posing. If someone is especially tall, raise the camera slightly. If they're very young, lower it. If someone is wearing glasses, you might ask them to lower their chin just a touch to reduce reflections. Those are tiny adjustments. Your lighting doesn't need to change every few minutes. That's exactly why we build a repeatable system. Common beginner mistakes. Before we wrap up, let me save you from a few mistakes that almost everyone makes when they're learning studio lighting. Mistake number 1, changing everything at once. If the exposure looks wrong, don't adjust your ISO, your flash power, your light position, and your aperture all at the same time. You'll never know which change actually fixed the problem. Instead, make one adjustment. Take another picture, then evaluate it. Professional photographers troubleshoot one variable at a time. Mistake number 2. The subject is attending too close to the background. This causes unwanted shadows behind your subject. It can also make the background look uneven. Give your subject some separation, at least 6 feet whenever possible. A little extra distance makes a surprisingly big difference. Mistake number 3, looking only at the camera screen. The back of your camera is useful, but don't rely on it completely. Zoom in, check the eyes, check the hair, look for distracting shadows. The tiny preview can sometimes hide problems that become obvious on a larger screen later. A few extra seconds now can save hours of editing later. My biggest advice: if there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's this. Studio lighting isn't about expensive equipment. It isn't about memorizing complicated lighting ratios, and it definitely isn't about making every setup look exactly like someone else's. It's about understanding what each light is doing. Once you know the purpose of the key light, the fill light, and the hair light, everything else starts making sense. From there, you're simply making small refinements, a little higher, a little lower, a little brighter, a little softer. Photography is rarely about huge changes. It's usually the small adjustments that make the biggest difference. Bringing it all together. Let's quickly recap everything we covered. We started by dialing in our camera settings before turning on a single light. Then we configured the wireless trigger so every flash worked together. Next, we built the lighting setup one light at a time. Beginning with the key light, adding the fill, then finishing with the hair light. We talked about why light distance matters, why I don't try to make my white background photograph pure white, and why tiny adjustments almost always beat major changes. Finally, we looked at the habits that help keep your lighting consistent throughout an entire picture day. Once you have this setup working, you'll spend far less time fighting your equipment and far more time focusing on your subjects. And honestly, that's where your attention should be. People don't remember how you positioned your light stand. They remember how you made them feel during the photo. A relaxed subject with good lighting will almost always produce a better portrait than perfect lighting with an uncomfortable subject. Never lose sight of that. I know studio lighting can feel intimidating when you're first getting started. There are flashes, triggers, modifiers, camera settings, and it can seem like there's a lot to remember, but once you build this setup a few times, it becomes second nature. Don't worry about memorizing every number. Focus on understanding why each light is there, because when you understand the purpose behind the setup, you can adapt it to almost any studio. So here's my challenge for you. Build this exact setup. Take a few test portraits, move one light, see what changes, then move it back and try something else. That's how you'll develop confidence with studio lighting. And before long, setting up your lights will be the easiest part of picture day. If you found this lesson helpful and you'd like to see more videos on volume photography, camera settings, posing, and workflow, be sure to subscribe. I've got plenty more practical tutorials coming that are designed to help you produce better portraits while making picture day run more smoothly. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson here at the Photography Blueprint channel.